Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davison. You're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back to the basics. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, who have books like Palace of the Golden Princess and White Lily, and you can find their books at pocketjackcomics.com as well as on Kickstarter. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Malcolm McFadden. I think I got your name right. Did I? Or if I didn't, correct me at any given point.
No, you definitely got it right. Definitely got my name right. What's up, everybody?
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. See, we're already off to a good start here. But you obviously you do 615 comics. You got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm excited to have you on. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No, as I said, I'm excited to have you on, and obviously you got a bunch of comics that you have already published on Kickstarter, and you have one right now going on called The King's Domain issues 1 and 2, which are on Kickstarter.
Mhm.
But before we get into that, why don't you introduce who you are? Because I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but you just don't have this little comic coming out. You have a whole universe that you have sort
Yes.
of built.
Yeah. So, what's up, everybody? I'm Malcolm McFadden, creator of 615 Comics, and I am the creator and writer. And I have a comic book universe, connected universe, similar to something like DC and Marvel or like Valiant Comics, out right now. When I have a Kickstarter running right now for my comic, The King's Domain, issues 1 and 2.
So yeah, so we're gonna get into that, but I do want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your comic universe and the comics you
Mhm.
produce because obviously they are. I wouldn't say they're all interconnected because you could read one without having to read the others, from my understanding. But they're in the same world, from my understanding. And so obviously, I mean that's something that I just want to get across. And if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong here, but obviously everything is in the same world, from my understanding.
Yes, all of my titles except for my one title, Brack Soul, aka Black Storm. That's the only one that's not in the same universe as the others. So my titles of Vorley, The King's Domain, Hellhawk, The Legacy, and Subject Zero. Those are the titles I got right now that are all in the same connected universe. But like you said, you can read each one separately, and you can and then you don't got to read them all to know what happens in each story.
Perfect, perfect. And then obviously, I want to get into what you got going on, which is the King's Domain. And so, what is the basic premise of this comic? Because there's people who have probably seen it on Kickstarter, there's people who have not seen it. And before we dive too much into it, what is the basic premise? Because it's interesting and it's not Black Panther. I want to make that
Right.
crystal clear. It's not Black Panther, okay?
It's
No
not
jokes
Black.
here. It's not Black Panther. I just want to make that crystal clear. It's in the Kickstarter, though. You said it's not Black Panther, so I
Right.
can't really, I can't make that clear enough. But please tell us what the basic premise is, because it's coming
Yes.
better from your mouth than mine.
So the reason why I also have that in there is because like just because my character is like black and he's cat based, people just automatically say Black Panther. But and which I get, and that actually helps me sell the book. But the King's Domain is about my character Amari King. He is a protector of animals and a fighter for the innocent, and he's using his power and resources and his abilities to stand up for animals and people that can't stand up for themselves. So he set his sights on this organization called the Alpha Organization. It was like this criminal syndicate who a lot of their profits come from animal cruelty, but they're also just evil people that need to be dealt with and stopped. So he has made it his mission to bring them down and stop their whole organization. And that's what the King's Domain is about.
Yeah, so let's get into this a little bit because obviously, Amari has money, he has physical training, he's a billionaire, I think, you know,
Yes.
and obviously he has a cause and that
Mhm.
he wants to use and fight for. And so what is this like? Because we've seen this with Batman, we've seen it with Iron Man,
Mhm.
but you still have all the problems despite being a billionaire called life. And so it's just interesting when you create this character from scratch and kind of combine all this stuff going on and even just figuring out because this is being built from scratch. It's
Right.
not like he walked in or 50 issues or 50 years into Batman. And so, what is that like for you to create? Because there's a twist here, whereas obviously somebody's standing up for animals,
Mhm.
and dealing with an illegal organization that's trading, testing, dealing with bad things with animals.
Yeah, so really, with like you said, this hero has a purpose, and mine. and with making him kind of like a protector of animals, that's kind of something I wanted to do that I saw was like different. So I don't really see too many heroes except for maybe like Vixen and Beast Boy, who are kind of like heroes for animals for real. So, and I was always an animal lover as a kid, so it kind of it kind of was cool making like a hero that was kind of like a protector of animals, but also people. But also it makes it so while writing the comic, I can put cool different animals in it that I want to, or make up animals that I want to, like rare animals. Like his pet lion is like a rare black lion with who has like a gold mane. So like it with that, like his purpose being like to protect animals, it really helps me kind of be creative with the story and do things that I think are pretty cool.
Do you also feel that at this point, though, in comics, because we've seen every story with Batman and Iron Man, and you have to have something that's out of the box, for lack of a better word here, because I can't be given the same position. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but Roman Reigns said it's missionary over and over and over again.
Right.
And after a while, it gets old, right? And you
Right.
need something new out of the box. And at least if you have an animal story and a hero is defending animals, we've seen some of those stories, maybe an issue here, issue there, but we really haven't seen that angle, or we haven't seen, things that deal with this. And because it gets boring. I don't know how many comics you read a year, but I read a lot and it gets boring. And I'm like, I know how this is going to end
Right.
before it even begins. And so, like, I don't know if that's like just for you, if it's just a challenge saying, can I do this? Or saying, I need a different hook. Because if I'm bored as a reader and, I need a new twist, just as a consumer. So I don't know if you feel that too, per se.
Um, so for me, it kind of not really, because when I went into it, I didn't really think about, trying to make my character stand out from like Batman stories or stuff like that. I just was trying to make a character himself, like make this character that I thought was cool, that I thought was a interesting character. So I guess I didn't really think about it too much because I was just into making an interesting character. So I thought my character already would just stand out and his story would stand out, and that it didn't really, those stories I didn't think about, and it didn't hold me back, or I tried to tried to like stand out from those stories. I was just really just creating my own story that I thought was interesting.
No, again, I find it interesting because again, I'm just looking for out of the box stuff because I need new
Yeah.
material. Because I hate to say it, but there's only so many ways you could tell a superhero story now, and we've
Right.
seen it when a superhero's been around for 80 years. Every story's been told at this point, and this is what's so interesting about indie comics, in my opinion, is that we have a bunch of people approaching things differently, and
Mhm.
that's why indie comics and Kickstarter is really a cool place on creative levels. These ideas get to be tested and done. But I digress right there because I do want to dive further into him because
No, no, actually, could I
obviously.
say something to that too?
Oh yeah, oh
Also,
please interrupt me anytime, please. I
sorry,
love it.
sorry, just you
No, no,
said
no, no.
something that
I
was
love it. I love it. Interrupt me anytime.
you just said something that was very interesting. You basically just said like there's only but certain ways to tell a superhero story. And like you said, indie comics are really trying to do that differently. And so with me, I don't typically try to just tell a superhero story. So not like the capes, stuff like that in the city, like your normal superhero story. Like, so when I created this character, I mainly feel like this is more so like an adventure type character. It's more so like Zorro or like the Phantom, like still a mass vigilante, but less of the superhero stuff and more so on the adventure side, if you get what I mean. So I think that's something that also a lot of indie creators are doing, are trying to turn superhero stories differently, trying to write them differently, so it's not just your normal old capes in a city, villains, bank robbers type of story, where it's kind of more um uh a different type of story, but you still get that you still scratch that itch that you get with like a superhero story, but it's still something outside of that that can be more, have more depth to it, and be a little bit more real and realistic.
Let me ask you this about even just this, because this is what I think is interesting, and I'm probably going to phrase it wrong. So hopefully I won't. But do you also feel that now we are out of, I guess, this fantasy, idea and this golden age, maybe even silver age superhero stuff, and we need more hard science to some of these characters at this point? Because I need, and I don't know, I'm 33. I need something more real. When I was 15, it was like fantasy land all day. And now I need something a little bit more realistic. I need something to be more plausible. and I also need something to be more adult, for lack of a better word. And I don't even mean like sex or anything like that, but like I need Batman to have a consequence for his action.
Mm.
Like I thought like Death of the Family was great with
Mm.
Scott Snyder because there was real consequences
Right.
for the Bat family. And I felt that great. Now we're actually getting an adult hero, but it's not like he's having sex with Catwoman. That's not the adult I'm looking for. But like I feel like with Indy, and I don't know how you feel about this, there's real consequences where if Amari does something and he doesn't do the mission right that he's on, an animal could die, and maybe that animal's on the verge of extinction, and it could ultimately wipe out the species if he doesn't stop these, people from doing it. And he might fail on something, or he might half succeed, or he might save the mother, but not the father of the animals he's trying to save, and it affects the species. So, like, do you feel that's also a big thing right now? Because manga does that really well, where there's consequences. Like when Jiraiya died in Naruto, he didn't come back. He didn't
Right.
come back. Like, sorry, spoiler alert. Like,
Yeah, so I think definitely I think one of the big differences with indie as opposed to like DC and Marvel is that indie doesn't have like 50 years of story to stuff to have to go along with, or a fan base that is going to be crazy because they can't let go of Batman and his
or a
storyline.
movie, or a Pop Funko, or
Yeah.
licensing.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing that's different with indie comics is where indie comics have that freedom, whereas Batman, you kind of his stories. Even I'm a Batman fan, but it's even reading Batman sometimes it's kind of like you said before, like you know where the story is going, you know how it's going to end because we've read so many Batman stories, and it's only going to end but certain ways because it's Batman. But with indie creators, like these are brand new, fresh stories where you have no clue where they're going to go or where they're going to end. Like with my story, my character could die in issue number 3. You feel me? Or like if you ever read Radiant Black, the person who was looking like the main character, I believe he dies in the 2nd issue. And then he the whole time you think he's the main character, and he dies, I believe, in the 2nd or 3rd issue. And then a whole nother person becomes the main character for the rest of that series. So I think with indies we have a lot of freedom to do that, and also what you were talking about on like the mature side. I think us now as adults, as the people who kind of grew up reading these comics, now that we're adults now, that's more so what we're looking for. And I think especially with indie and then like especially with Image, a lot of those comics you can search for things outside of like DC and Marvel that have that more mature feel to it. And even in DC and Marvel, DC has the Black Label, I believe it's called, and they're bringing back Vertigo. So those are some of their more mature adult stories where it's not just like sex or nothing. It's just more mature, more adult stories. Sometimes they really lean on being detective stories. So yeah, I think definitely with us being older, that is definitely like a need and something that we're looking for.
Did you also feel though that even on Kickstarter too, it's like, your 12-year-old is not going into, Kickstarter land, for lack of a better word, or a Kickstarter, because you got to be 18, I think, to back a Kickstarter.
Oh,
You
for
know,
real? I didn't know that.
and the reason why is that you need a credit card, and you can't get a
Oh,
credit card, or I mean,
cool.
you can get a debit card technically on a custodial account, but that means you need somebody to sign for you. I mean, not to get too much into legal guardian, but I do think I could be wrong because I don't. You need a way to pay,
Right.
and so if you don't have you can't get a debit card or a credit card without a custodialship unless if you're not 18 and your parent doesn't sign for it. So you can't pay for a Kickstarter if you're not 18. I mean, it's just logic, and I don't. I think that you might not even be able to, be on Kickstarter if you're not 18. I don't know about that fully, but I would imagine because most websites are like that have paywalls or payment processing.
No, that
But
makes sense.
so, like, I mean, a 12-year-old is not saying, boy, I want this comic, this comic, this comic. Maybe some are telling their parents what they want, but,
Mhm.
a 12-year-old's going into a comic shop to a degree, a
Yeah.
13-year-old or a 15-year-old. So, like, I think that's also it, too, is that, I mean, I'm 33. When I back something, I mean, I'm looking for particular stories. I'm not looking for, like, run of the mill, not thought provoking stuff anymore. So I find the whole thing interesting, but I do want to dive further into this because obviously we have a character who is becoming a hero, and it's kind of his journey. And I mean, this is issues 1 and 2, and I think it's an ongoing series. And
Mhm.
so what is that like too? Because you have to evolve the character. And I think
Mhm.
that in issue 1, we kind of get an introduction. And in issue 2, which is being funded right now, something's gonna happen.
Right.
That's gonna start shaping him. And there's a new villain and there's a bunch of villains in there, but something's gonna happen. And so what is that like? Because now we're really getting to play with the fun stuff where we got a billionaire doing billionaire stuff, fighting crime, and this is just a powder keg waiting to happen.
Right. Yeah. So it's very interesting because, like you said, it's an ongoing series. So of course the character can't stay the same. He actually has to go through things, and that's one thing I love to do. So I actually, I actually noticed that with a lot of my stories, my main character in the first arc, they really go through it. Like they take L's like that in the first arc of my stories, and he definitely you'll start to see in issue 1, you kind of saw him kind of just like beasting and being, like kind of seems unstoppable. And in issue 2, you'll kind of start to see like, okay, he is a man that is up against, this sizable feat. You feeling like he's up against these villains who are really dangerous. And then so this whole first arc is kind of about him and shaping, because he has his purpose, and it's kind of like shaping, is this really what he wants to do? Is this really what he can do? Him just being one man, is he able to actually do this? Has he bitten off more than he can chew? So yeah, for it to be an ongoing series, it definitely is. It's actually pretty fun to. This is kind of chaotic, sound kind of chaotic, but it's pretty fun to put somebody through the ringer. But I also know that he's going to come out the other end better and more polished.
So let's actually talk about this because what is that like to build a character and then beat the character down, right? Because I mean, Shakespeare plays are divided into threes. It's either the first act is the upswing for one side, the second act is usually the pushback for the other, and then the third one is all hell breaks out.
Hmm.
In every single one, Romeo and Juliet, it's the same thing. In Caesar, it's the same thing. Macbeth, it's the same thing. Is that it's 3 acts, right? And in the final act, anything could happen, right? And so I think it's interesting because you could make your character majestic and invincible, and then have them in the second act or the second arc or whatever we're gonna call it, get the shit kicked out of them, or you could have the shit kicked out of them, and then it's the triumphant return, and
Hmm.
that's a whole different story. And both have merit. So, like, what is that like? Because it's all about setting things up, right? And it's interesting, right? When you do that, I mean, it's like the rise and fall tactic, and how do you want to start your character and shape them?
Yeah, it's fun. It's really actually fun, especially as like a storyteller and writer. You get to really get to know your character. You kind of when you first started creating your character, you kind of have like a your idea about them that you kind of start to shape and mold. But when you really start to get to writing the character and writing their arc, or what the story is about, and you gotta kind of give them, because your character can't just be unbeatable, because that's just a boring story. So like your character has to go through something. Even Batman, we know Batman is him. Like we know Batman is gonna figure out, but we want to see him figure it out. We want to see him go through the mud and then actually get to the solution. So that as a writer is so fun to actually put a character through, and then you, like I said, you get to know him. You get to figure out, hey, okay, my character is, these are his strengths, these are his weaknesses. So how, and then when his weaknesses come into play, how can he use his strengths to get through those weaknesses, or to better his weaknesses? Or how you said before, like maybe your character starts off just getting the shit beat out of him all the time, like Invincible. So like maybe like Invincible, like your character doesn't start out to be like this Superman like character, and then you see them kind of build to be that through the weaknesses. So it kind of, and it also is fun because that is life, right? It's life. That's how we go through life without being superheroes. Like we don't have powers, but every day we go through things, and we got to like build ourselves up and then go through them. So it's really fun to actually take that journey, like a real life journey, but put a comic book spin on it, and then just to create that character and kind of go deep into that character, and then just create the story. It's really kind of exciting. You kind of got me wanting to just create a new character and just write right now.
Again, I'm not a writer. I haven't created a comic book. I don't have a desire to do it at the moment for a lot of reasons, mainly because you know, I just money. It's expensive to do this. It's brutally expensive to do all this. I call it like it is, guys. I call it like it is.
It
Um,
is.
it's anywhere from what, like 4,500 to 6 grand minimal on the cheap side per issue, give or take.
Depend that just if you really want like high quality good artwork and like a good product, yes, that's about what it's gonna cost you for one issue.
And that could include or not include printing, depending on how you do it, and it's
Right.
just creation in which that, and then I mean, talking about 3 4 covers, you know, it just goes up from there, and depending on how you work out deals, what you do, what you offer, and then printing is a whole nother component, and we're gonna get to that in a second because I'm always curious how people think about business, but obviously I do want to even go further into this because obviously the other thing about this whole book is that right now you're just focused on him in his book. So I don't think your other characters from the universe of 615 are going to come in per se, but there's some villains, obviously, that maybe they get their asses kicked and they decide to jump to another book. And maybe, there's a lot of other stuff that could happen in your universe. And also, and I don't know how far you've gotten with this per se, but, you know, if villains from another one of your books could jump into this book in a circumstance, or other heroes could come in, and so you could have massive stuff going on. And who's to say that stuff can't go crazy? But I don't think we're there yet, per se, at least in
Well,
these issues.
well, just so little bomb drop or whatever, a villain from another book does make an appearance in this book. He very small appearance, very small appearance. Is not like nothing big, like he doesn't really do too much, but he makes an appearance in the book. So it kind of that is actually funny that you said all that because like he makes an appearance and it kind of shows it's connected and because he's connected to one of the villains in this story. So that's why he makes an appearance. So that is one cool thing that will happen in issue 2 of the King's Domain. So if you're reading one of my other books, I'm not going to say right now which book it is, but if you're reading one of my other books, you'll be shocked to see somebody in this book.
And then obviously you got a new villain coming into this thing, and I think that's an actual new villain, right? That's a new character too, right?
It's a new character. Whether it's a villain or not, we do not know yet. I'll wait till I
Okay,
want people to experience the book, but it is a brand new character that comes in, but you don't know if they're a villain, if they're friend or foe.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not going to press you on it too much. So obviously that's kind of the creative stuff that's going on, and obviously,
Mhm.
I think it gives enough things for people to digest and bite into. But I do want to go further into this because obviously, you're building a universe, and
Mhm.
what is that like? Because universe building is very complicated. Because obviously, I'm taking the presumption that a bunch of your books take place in different places and they're not in the same city, which probably helps a lot. Because
Right.
if you're in Los Angeles and you have a story in New York, those two characters are not going to cross each other. And what's happening in LA is not really going to affect New York as far as a story. So if you crash through a building, and you're fighting in Brooklyn and you go to the Bronx and your other superheroes in the Bronx, there could be a problem in
Right.
that universe. But I don't think your stories are that close, but they're still in the same world. So if something happens on a global scale, every hero is going to be affected and every villain is going to be affected, but they're not affected on. So, but even still, what is that like? Because you still have to be careful when you build a universe because if a war breaks out in Canada, and we're picking Canada, the most peaceful country on the planet, every hero in your book's going to be affected in one
Right.
way or another. But at the same time, their daily lives are not going to be affected. So what is that like though? Because it is tricky because you have to make sure that things stay continual in all the books and in the universe as far as world events.
Yeah. So
I know you froze.
to not make it like the Marvel universe because a lot of them are just in New York. A lot of them are just in New York. So you're like, how you got the X-Men, you got Spider-Man, you got everybody just in New York and they don't cross over like literally all the time. So with creating my universe, I definitely wanted each book to stand alone. I didn't want you to have to read all the books to know what's going on. So that was so that when thinking about that, I had them set up in different pockets of my universe and different places to where their stories won't cross over until I need them to or want them to cross over. So that was one thing that I was really thinking about, because you, like you said, making a whole universe is not easy. It's not easy at all, because you got to think about, like you said, the consequences. If this happens here, will this affect this person, this person, this person? So that's why I had my universe kind of set off in this different pockets until will be an event that happens that kind of makes my characters intersect. But I also put things in like little Easter eggs and things in each story that are kind of similar to other stories. Or like I said, I had a villain that's going to show up in this book that's from another book, just to show that it's all connected and everything. But everything is still really spread far apart, so it doesn't really affect each other.
So even to talk about universes and because I call it cosmic events or collaticalism is a
Mhm.
word I like. I don't even know if that's a real word, but if it is, I'm definitely trademarking that. If it's not, that's my word. You heard it here first. And the idea of it is that you build a bunch of characters, and it's kind of like what Marvel did with the movies. Is that they did Captain America, they did Iron Man, and then they did the Avengers. And I thought that was super smart because we had all
Mhm.
these characters individually, and then we get an event that unites them. And I think when people build universes, whether you get to that stage or you don't, that's completely up to a creator. But I think that's what forces interesting components, right? Because
Mhm.
that to me is how you build a universe, right? Is that you don't start with the Justice League. You start with all these characters individual, and then you force an issue where they have to become the Justice League versus saying, and I know I'm using a lot of DC, but I think it's the perfect example is that so if all of a sudden Amari and then three of other your characters now have to face a villain together or a syndicate, for lack of a better word, and they only need to unite, that makes sense, right? Because we know these characters now, and we don't need, if now they're in a universal book, to be introduced to all of these characters again.
Right. But I think you can start off with like, I think you can start off with like a Justice League. So like depends on how you do it. So like for me, if I was to start off with my characters all on one team, right? I had actually a couple ideas that I wrote down that I haven't like fully fleshed out yet. But like if I had like a full team, like and then like let's say in the first time you meet them, they're all handling like a big event or something like that. That is like could be your introduction to each character, and then you can branch off into their other stories and then to their different pockets of universes, and then still tell that character story. And I think it really depends on how you do it. I do think like how Avengers do it, like you build up each character and then you bring them together. I mean, that's kind of how comics were anyway. So like each character was their own thing before things started crossing over. But I think you definitely, depending on how you do it, I think you definitely could start off with
Let
like
me
a
ask you
team.
this. Let me ask you this. Did you feel that because I feel like if you start with a super team, you might not know who the leader should be. You might not know who is the more popular character, who's the character who's going to be the money
Mm,
driving character. Because
true.
if you have seven characters, there's always the one that's the money, right? That's going to drive the most fans, the most monies, all the cute girls looking at him. There's always
Mhm.
the one, right? So, if you do it the way where you're doing it, where you got 4 or 5 books and these characters, which book does better than the others, and which character
Right.
is your fan favorite, right? And which one people really come to more so than the others. Doesn't
Right.
mean that they're written all badly or one's written better than the other. It just means that a certain character might resonate better than others. And
Yes.
that could definitely change the way you approach a team book. Versus if you just throw the
Mm,
team together, you don't know who's the money driver. And
very
that's why I think
true.
it's so interesting. And I'm curious if you feel that way, because that's how I feel is that if I'm building a team, I kind of want to test the market to see if I got 5 people that I'm going to put on a team. I want to see these 5 individual. How are they relate? How do people react to them? Because that's going to change the way I approach the team. And to see even if the team's a good idea, because if all these characters are not going to work well together or they're not connecting, I might say, let me scratch the team idea and find a different team to build. Or if they
True.
all have sidekicks, maybe I want to put the sidekicks together and we knock off the Teen Titans.
No, I definitely get that. Yeah, because if you like you said, I know who is the main character that people like. So when I write the crossover, I definitely want to give that character a lot of shine because that's like the person that everybody is looking for. But I think also on the other end, if you did like the main team thing, that could be your tester to figure out who is the moneymaker out of the team. But I still think that that would be you would after you put that out, you would kind of see who people gravitate towards. But like you said, that would affect the writing it because if you know who the person is, everybody's gonna gravitate towards. You can shape the book around that. You can shape like some of your biggest scenes to be around this character or something like that. Or you can shape some big scenes to be around a character that's not as popular to try and give that character more shine. But I think definitely that would 100% affect how you go about writing it because even now we're seeing which characters people are gravitating towards kind of shapes like which character I'm gonna push more or put more money into or who I write a certain way for, if that makes sense.
Because the reason why is that I think so business oriented, right?
Mhm.
And the way I think, and I think very differently than people in comics, is that I write and I think and I approach things on a linear business model and
Okay.
approach. So in everything. So you name it, it's like straight business approaching. Doesn't mean that I don't have ideas and that I don't do what I want and take high flyers. But even on my show, I look at people and I say, cool, what is this book? And I don't have a book that deals with animals, right? And
Mhm.
and I look for diversity. I look for different things. I look for different hooks. I mean, I'm very transparent about it, right? And so I'll go A to B to C to D to F, and then like I'll do a graphic designer and mix it all up, right? Because I'm trying to achieve, stuff. And then I also know, what's gonna hit, what's not gonna hit, right?
Right.
But it's the idea is that it changes, I guess. So that's how I think, right? I think on a linear level, and I think on a business level. So I find it fascinating, right? Because you want the most success for your book, and you want to be able to raise the most amount of money.
Mhm.
And so I do think that like, and that's just how I think, and that's why I ask these questions because I think it's so important when you're spending 6 grand that you better be right. Is all I'm saying. Like you better be right on how to shape a character because I could tell you that if I spend 6 grand and I'm wrong, oh my god, does that hurt?
Right. Right. It hurts your pockets. It definitely hurts your pockets.
So like that's how I approach it. Because again, it's a business to me. Making comics is a business. It's not like any other business. The closest thing it is it's to running a sports organization, meaning that decisions are made based on emotion, statistics, ideas, and understanding your audience. And you
Mhm.
might pay Aaron Judge more money, but Aaron Judge sells tickets. So,
Mhm.
or you might pay Otani a lot of money and Otani sells tickets. So like, Otani might really only be worth 60 million, but you're paying him 70 because he's going to sell out 70 million tickets. So
Mhm.
like it's a really so like this is how I approach it, right? And I think it's so interesting because and I'm just curious because it's so tricky because you want to still create something and do the right thing, but you also got to fund your book.
Right.
And it's always the balance, right?
Yeah, so there's always a balance. Like, yeah, of course, creating something that you love and also being able to sell it too. Um, if you but that's if you want to go that route because there's a lot of creators out there that aren't really care about making money. They just kind of want to create something that they love and just put it out there. But if like for me myself for how I want to write these stories and tell these stories, I definitely have to make money to be able to continue to do it or I'm gonna go broke. So when I go into writing these stories and making these characters, I really think about marketing them. How can I sell them? Is this story relatable? Will people buy this? Does this character catch people's eyes? If they see this on Instagram, will they instantly be like, okay, let me click this link to see what this character is about? So definitely all that goes into thinking about it, thinking about the process of making the comic book because like you said, it costs a lot to make comics. So you want to get your money back at least somewhat so you can continue to do it. So all that kind of goes into the thought process of making a book. Like, is it relatable? Will people pick this up? Is it eye catching? Is it visually pleasing? Because it's comic books. The story could be great, but if your artwork is not good and like it's not catching people's eyes, that people may not even pick it up.
If your book, if you're so, I mean, this is my rule, right? I go through an Instagram, right? And let's say you're doing a comic book, right? I go through your Instagram. If I got a minute on your Instagram, so minute to 90 seconds, you have to have 3 covers. If you have one book, the rule doesn't apply. But if you have 15 books, you have to have 3 covers that make me say, cool, what is this? This looks awesome. I might only want to buy one of them, but you got to make me stop. You got 90 seconds with me. That's it. On your Instagram, right? Now, granted, if you have 40,000 posts, you have a little bit more time because you have 40,000 posts and you have a lot more, but you still really only got 90, maybe 2 minutes with me at most. And that's the thing. Even with a Kickstarter, you got 2 minutes with me at best. You got 60 seconds at worst, or 15 seconds in reality. So it doesn't catch my eye on a cover. I'm like, there's a million things I could buy. There's a million covers I could buy today. And you got to make me stop before I even know what your story is. You got to make me stop with your art on the cover. It's the first thing I'm going to say. And it's so tricky. And I hate to say I'm judging a book by its cover, but you're damn right I am.
But you are. You have that's what happens. Like when you're in the comic book shop, like when you're in a comic book shop and you're looking at the shelf of everything, the first thing that like captures your eyes, which you're going to pick up, you're going to flip through, you're going to look at. So if something doesn't even capture your eye off the first look, like, then there people might not pick it up.
I was in a comic shop 2 weeks ago, and I never saw a book before. And I said, "Hey, what that cover looks awesome. What's that book about?" And then the owner said, "I'm not going to say what comic shop and what book it was, but then I want to pick up the book. I enjoyed it. Right? Was it the best book I ever bought? No. Right? But if the cover didn't look interesting, wouldn't have picked it up, right? So I picked up. I mean, we're talking like $4 or $5, so it's not like huge amount of money. But the point I'm making is that if the cover didn't look interesting, would have went to the next one, and so it's very important. And then on the internet, you don't have the luxury of me asking the owner of a store, hey, what's that book about? And he can't tell me what it's about, right? And so you don't have somebody selling your book that way on Kickstarter or on Instagram. You got to make sure that cover sells itself. It's so complicated, and it's not fair. It's the only way I can say it. Like, it's not fair because certain books sell themselves and certain books do not. But I digress. But I do want to talk about this because this leads right into my questions that I'm curious what you feel is the biggest challenges in comics right now, because there's a lot of stuff going on in comics and it's a tough business at the moment.
Toughest thing in comics right now. I think one of the things is, it may not be the toughest, but is one of them is where people are saying it's hard to get into comics when it's kind of really not. It's maybe hard to get into maybe DC and Marvel because they got 50 years, but in comics as a whole, it's kind of really easy to get in comics, just like it is manga. You just kind of start with a number one. And so that kind of stigma hurts comics, but we are still seeing a trend of people starting to try to get into comics and starting to like comics, especially with a lot of TV shows being made by comics. But I would say that stigma is one of the hard parts and one of the toughest things in comics.
I was having a conversation with somebody, and I think it's interesting is that this is my position, is that I think it's hard to convert somebody who goes to see Fantastic Four down to the comic of Fantastic Four. And the reason why I see the movie down to the comics. So there's plenty of people, right? I'm in the card space, right? So I know plenty of people who are collecting Marvel Chrome and Marvel Studio Chrome, and they love it. They know everything about these characters from the movies, the television shows, but they've never opened up a comic book. And so I find it so interesting because I'm like, great, you're into superheroes, you're into Marvel, you're into this whole concept, but you haven't read a Fantastic Four issue ever. But the people are reading comics, they'll see the movie and then they'll read comics again, and they're
Mhm.
going up and down the ladder. But the people who just see the movie, they're not coming down. And so
Right.
I find that to be a massive challenge because how do I get the person and maybe just to Marvel? Because once you get them to read an issue of Fantastic Four, it's easier to convert them to another book.
Right.
It's just
Let's
getting them into the funnel first. That
let's
seems to be the biggest issue because there's a whole group of people, right? You know, I would like to say billions, but it's not. It's probably like hundreds of millions of people, or at least 100 million people, who are seeing these movies, but they're not coming into the funnel of actually buying a comic book. And I'm not even saying buying your book. I'm saying buy a Marvel book or a DC book. So like that's what I think is one of the biggest challenges right now.
Yeah, but also that is kind of Marvel's and DC fault because they don't their movies. When you go see a movie, you can't just be like, if I my friends, if they went to go see like let's say the Superman movie, there is not a comic I can tell them that directly is like that movie. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's not a comic like with anime and manga. Like, people can watch the anime and be like, "Oh, go read the manga," because it's like this is basically just this with maybe a little bit more detail to it. There is nothing where like I can be like, "Okay, you saw the Flash movie, now you should go read this because it's going to be like this." You feel me? So that's kind of their fault on their end. But I think DC in a way is trying to change that with saying like, hey, this movie kind of takes inspiration from this comic. You feel me? Like, they're saying that like even with the new Supergirl movie, they said it's not going to be a direct representation of the comic, but it's going to take some themes and kind of be inspired by it. So, and they were saying, hey, if you want to, before you go see this movie, go read that comic. So that's one way that they're trying to kind of fix that part. But also I think what's also kind of fixing it is these other things like Invincible, the TV show Invincible. Like, there was a big boom of people buying the comic after the TV show came out, and the TV show in the comic take a lot of the same themes. Like, it's not a direct representation, but it still is closer than what you would get to like a DC or Marvel movie being like the comic book. And that's no shade to some of the movies. I still like some of the movies, but they're just not really close to the comic books.
Fair enough, fair enough. And then obviously, I mean, we could dive into more challenges, and I'm curious how you feel about this, in which that obviously, money is right now a big issue in comics. I
Mhm.
mean, I hate to say this, it's I know plenty of people who have lost their jobs. You know, earlier this year, I am included in that position. So I was laid off. I know plenty of other people were laid off. I know plenty of people who are expecting raises this year that didn't get them. Healthcare is more expensive. I know plenty of people are struggling economically, including sort of me. I'm fixing my life, but it's not an easy road per se. I'm going to be fine in the long run, everybody. So this is before anybody's concerned. It's just a rough patch. And anybody who said they had a good 2025, where are you from? What do you do? And please call me, because whatever you did in 2025, God bless you. God bless you. And can I just come and like be right next to you wherever you're at in your life? But anyway, all jokes aside, that's an issue. And then even printing and just even marketing, I feel, is also a really big challenge. And I'm curious how you feel about all that, because that to me is those are really, I think, the three main issues with comics right now, is that all of that. And then even just funding on Kickstarter too, because it is brutal. It is a brutal, brutal entity.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough making comics, especially with the money side of everything. But it's if it's something you love to do and it's something that you want to do and have a passion for, and this is something you will do. You feel me? So like especially with marketing and stuff, it can become a little daunting, I guess. But it's just, if you got a passion for it, it's something that you do. Like, I love comics. I love writing and making comics. So um yeah, you just push through it. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. And then obviously, I mean, distribution is just a nightmare, and I don't even know what the hell's going on with that. So it's the fall of Diamond. It didn't help anybody either. It didn't help indies. It didn't help the big guys. It really screwed up a lot of people. I mean, I know companies who have lost 60,000, and then there's Dynamite that lost 600,000.
Are you asking me?
Oh no! I'm just stating. I think that's what they lost.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were asking me. I was going to say I'm not sure.
I think so. I could be wrong here. My point is that Diamond basically screwed people out of like $50 million, give or take. It
Yeah,
is what it really is. And then they were supposed to pay it in bankruptcy, and the whole thing's a nightmare. And what that did is that really screwed up a lot of stuff because
yeah,
there are indie titles that were going to get distribution, and all of a sudden, all of those things are gone. And I don't think it helps anybody. I don't think it helps the small guys, the big guys, because it now makes it that you have to distribute your book yourself.
right.
And those deals now are not so, they're not falling from the sky as they once were, a little bit better, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Yeah, well, for me personally, I've always been distributing my comics personally, so I didn't have a deal with anybody distributing. So that kind of didn't affect me, you know. But I know it did affect a lot of indie creators, but some indie creators that I know, and it affected the industry as a whole. But for me personally, I've already been distributing my comics myself, so yeah, it didn't really affect me as much.
So what is that like? Because obviously, if you distribute it yourself, you have a lot of control, and then you can, I mean, I'm presuming you sell online, you're at cons, you go to local, you have your comic shop. Hey, I got this book. They buy it from you directly. You might do a comic signing. I mean, what does actual local distributing look like?
It looks like a lot of work. It looks like a lot of work, but it's worth it though. Like you said, I have an online store that I'm always promoting, telling people to go to. I go to cons, go to different events, flea markets, wherever you can set up a table and talk to some people. I'm trying to do that. I actually got some plans to do some stuff this summer that I'm still planning on and trying to flesh out, but they look like it's going to be dope. But it's all about, it's kind of, when you kind of distribute yourself, you kind of really got to be forward facing. You kind of got to talk to a lot of people, emails, phone calls, just being out there, just being out there, just at events and stuff, doing interviews like this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of putting pressure on yourself and everything. But if you want to get your book out there and get people talking about it, get in people's hands, you kind of have to do that. So like if you're looking to distribute the book yourself, even if you do get a distributor, you're still going to have to go out there and
Do
push
you
the book.
did you feel that because I'll tell you how I feel, right? So I've never been offered, but people have made gestures that they would want my show on their network. And
Mhm.
the reason why I don't want to do that is that I want complete control.
Right.
It sounds weird. I want complete control to interview when I want, how I want, who I want, and it's my call because it's my show and it's my show for the last like 13, 14 years. I
Mhm.
started this and I've been running strong ever since, right? So since I've been running strong for probably 11 years now, give or take. So, and I've done almost like 1,300 interviews, and I have no desire to give up any control anytime soon. And so I would rather have less viewership and not be part of a network and have no restrictions, than have restrictions and have a bigger audience because I find that it would affect authenticity. And do you feel that if you were to be picked up by a distributor or a small publisher, and we don't have to name names, I mean, that there's like five of them that it could affect authenticity to some degree. It could affect how much control you have, and it could affect ultimately the brand you're trying to build because you're building a brand, right? It's 615 Comics. It's not, Joe Smith's Comics, right? That you're being distributed by, and they're putting their logo on it, and then they don't like that you named the character something, right? Like, because that's how I feel. Is that I don't want anybody to tell me who I can't interview or what I can't say on my show, and that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel about that with distribution because I hate to say it, but distributors do sometimes call shots and calling a chit versus a favor, and it could be a pain in the ass.
Um, well,
You don't have to
for
answer it. You could just plead the fifth.
what is actually the question? Like, are you asking me like how if I would do that
Do
or
do you feel that since you're distributing yourself, that you have full control and you keep authenticity? Because I've seen this where, comic deals wanted to take stuff and change characters and affect and change a book to pick it up. And I think it's pretty, I mean, depending on what they want to change, it could really affect your brand and it could affect your authenticity. Because I think at this point in comics, I mean, somebody is listening to my show for my guest and for me. And I think people are backing projects because of people behind the project and the book itself. And the second somebody ruins their credibility because a distributor or a publisher says, I want to, change a character, I think it could screw up your whole business. So, I mean, I'm curious how you feel about that because I've seen it. And I think it's a real problem. And when you do it yourself, nobody can tell you what to do and you're the boss.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, 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 for me, I wouldn't change anything about my characters or change up a character. Especially I couldn't change a character since the book's already done. So like if I were to go with the distributor, then I would still want control over my characters and over my story. I wouldn't change my story or my character to fit a distributor. I would just push my story myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, no, I was just curious because again, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. And
Right.
that's just me, right? That's just me. And I'm a stubborn goat like that. And I'm the first person to tell you that. Which is terrible. But having said that, obviously, and I also think there's something to be said about saying I want to do it my way, you
Right.
know, versus somebody else's. What is it? Frank Sinatra said he did it my way. Um, that's the song they're playing at my funeral. It's gonna be great. The only problem is that I'm not gonna be there to listen to it. But anyway, all morbid jokes aside, I do want to talk about your rewards though, because I think it's interesting your rewards, right? Because the thing is that a digital copy I think is $5, and then
Mhm.
I think that there's a upgraded digital copy, and then I think that your issues 1 and 2 are pretty cheap also. I think what is it, like $10 for both issues, or is it like 8 around that price point?
Digitally $10 for both issues.
So right there, it's not bad. And then I think you can get a physical copy A or a physical copy B of your book for $10 too, right?
Yes.
And then obviously, I mean, I think you can get covers A's and B sets for 20. I think there's digital libraries. I think you can get, a mixture of the whole thing. I mean, you can get, I think, cover A's from issue 1 also, if I'm not mistaken, and then cover
Yes.
B from issue 1 too. So all this stuff's like $20. A digital library is like 50. And then there's some other add-ons that are just like limited 5 covers left, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think any of this thing is actually that ridiculously expensive. So, what is that like? Because I think there's something to be said about selling me a book for $10 because I can go to my local comic store and pick up, a book from Marvel DC Dynamite for $5. And I don't know how you feel, but I've bought in the cover A of a Kickstarter for $25. And I'm like, fuck, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I mean, for a cover A, that's a lot of money. And I think it's so interesting because your prices are affordable. And if you want readers, you need to be affordable.
Right. Yeah. But that also depends on you and your product. So, so let's say DC and Marvel can sell their stuff for cheaper because they got deals and stuff on printing and stuff like that. So they can sell their stuff for cheaper. As me, as an indie creator, where I'm paying for everything. I'm paying for, the artwork, and we are talking about how much a book can be. So, for me, of course, it's going to be a little bit more pricey because I'm not DC and Marvel. But also, like, I've seen there are Kickstarters where you would pay like 25 for like one of the covers, but mostly sometimes those is like special covers, variant covers, or something like that, or the book is like 48 pages or something like that, or maybe more than just your normal 24. I think it's just all about your product, and if people are willing to buy it. If you have a book that people are willing to pay $25 for, then by all means do that. then I
let
just
me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt, but like it becomes a real issue, right? Where and not that somebody's charging, but it becomes an issue where it's like if your book is $10, it definitely hits a different target, right? Of what people can afford. And so now, especially if it's a cover A or a cover B, right? And I get those exclusive covers and you have, a top artist and an expensive artist doing it. I get all that, right? But it also becomes an issue where do you want readers or do you want, to fund it? And so that whole balancing cost, right? Because the reason why people do those variants is because they got to fund their book, right? But then it also becomes the issue is it that you want, what does your audience want? I mean, you have to know that question because maybe your audience wants those cool variants, right? And they want that exclusive limited 50s. But also at the same point, do you want to build an audience and a readership? And like it's a real tricky debate that's going on. I mean, I was just watching something with somebody and they were talking about this. It's like, do you need the audience or do you need the funds? And because what I like about your Kickstarter is that it's affordable in times where money is tight. I mean, I'm going to be very honest. It's like money's super tight right now with people. It's tight in my life. And, affordability books are really, really, really good for me. Like a $10 book is something that, is in my budget or can be in my budget. A $25 book, I get priced out right now. A year ago, I wasn't because, obviously things were better. But like that's what I like about your Kickstarter is that you see more reader centric and audience building. And I think it's a good thing.
yeah, because I mean, I'm still new to comic book creating, so it's definitely I want to build my audience. I want people to read the books. I want people to come to the Kickstarter and actually be able to afford the books and stuff like that. And I just want to be reasonable. Most of my prices are before I started making comic books, I was kind of studying other indie creators and what they were pricing their books at and like looking at the videos and why they were pricing their books at that. So I kind of went with the model that was already created. And kind of after research and study, that's what I set my prices to. But I definitely think it's still affordable. Even at like cons and stuff, I can still sell them and still, make money back. But yeah, I just really wanted to be able to build my fan base and bring in new readers, as many as possible.
And let me ask you this too about this, because again, my thought process is slightly different. Is that I don't think Kickstarter is the end. I think Kickstarter is a first round on sales. And
Right.
that's how I feel. And I feel that the other rounds is that a round 2 is a con or multiple cons. Round 3 is a comic shop. Round 4 is online. And then who's to say that when you do issue 3 of the King's Domain, if you have leftover of cover Bs, you still can't sell them on that Kickstarter or on
Right.
other projects you do as add-ons. And I think some people, don't realize that Kickstarter was supposed to be the beginning, not the end. It's
Right.
like because the goal is that you're kickstarting a project. You're not funding this and it's set you up for the rest of your life.
Right.
It would be nice if it did. I'm not saying
Right.
don't do that, everybody. If you can go make $10 million on your campaign, God bless you. Go for it. I'm rooting for you. I'll cheer for you on the sides all day long. If you can do it, be my guest. You deserve every penny you make. But it's supposed to kick start it. It's supposed to get you off the runway into the air, if you will. And then you go from there. So I don't know how you feel about that, but like to me, that was the point of Kickstarter is that you kickstart something and then you ascend away from upward and onward to higher heights.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Kickstarter. So main what I use Kickstarter for is because Kickstarter already has like an audience. People already go to Kickstarter for comic books. It's actually a really nice platform. And actually gives you kind of numbers on the back end that you can use. So that's one reason why I love Kickstarter. But Kickstarter definitely, like I said, it's a Kickstarter. So what I do is I use the Kickstarter to kind of get the funds together and everything so I can get it printed. I mostly try to have my comics already done and paid for already before I come to the Kickstarter. So then once the Kickstarter is done, I can just ship it out to people. So Kickstarter helps me get them printed, get the funds all together, and then after I get them printed, I normally use the funds from the Kickstarter to get extras printed, so I can go take those to cons, take those to events, and also sell them on my website. So, like you said, it's to kickstart and jumpstart it, and then you kind of afterwards push it more.
No, 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 no. Again, that's what I thought Kickstarter was, but
Mhm.
and I think some people still think Kickstarter's that, and I think a lot of people don't. But that's a whole debate, and everybody hates me when we have these debates because I'm negative Nancy on that one. Um, no, no, no. I'm all for Kickstarter when people deliver their projects to me on time. But that's a big issue. That's a really big issue, apparently. Um, and nobody wants to talk about it. But I don't know how many projects you've backed, but let's just say that I got about 15 that are long overdue, and it's very disappointing. For people who should know better. But I digress here. Obviously we spoke about a lot of stuff, and then the final thing I want to ask you is that where do you see comics going in this age? Because we're in an interesting time on creativity, on what is possible, economics, who knows what else, Warner Bros. Discovery being bought by Netflix, all of that it is an interesting time. And you all should have listened to me when I told you to buy Netflix, but nobody did. So, hey, I bought that thing dirt cheap. I bought that thing dirt cheap. $177 a share, guys. I told everybody to do it. You didn't listen. You didn't listen the first time, and you're not. And Netflix is dirt cheap right now too. So this is not financial advice. This is just a pattern. That's all I'm going to say. On when I'm right, go buy me a beer. But anyway, the question is, where do you think this is all going? Because a lot of stuff is happening in the industry right now.
I think with comics, oh, excuse me, comics are like in comics are kind of like in a boom right now, in my opinion, especially with a lot of creators and people making comics. I think comics are also can be used to like make TV shows and movies. So I think we may be in a boom with comics and seeing a lot of creators go to comics, especially with it being like a visual medium. And just I think it's one of the best mediums for you to be able to tell a story. Like we say, it costs a lot, but it's not as much as making an animated movie or like a real movie. I think that we can really see a boom in people testing their stories and ideas with comics. You feel me? I think we could see that, and then they transform into people using that for TV shows and movies, like Robert Kirkham. I think I'm saying his name right, the creator and writer of The Walking Dead and Invincible. So like
Kirkman, Robert Kirkman.
Kirkman. Sorry, Kirkman.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. Just getting it right, but continue.
Yeah, I don't want to mess that up. Robert Kirkman, so like with him, I like him making his comics and then making those in a live action and animated. I think we could see a trend of that happening. I think that it already is a trend of it happening. People just don't see it. There's a lot of, especially Netflix, every time I'm on Netflix, I feel like I see a new joint that is based off a comic that I randomly saw one time, like, and then I think that's kind of where it may go with comics and storytelling.
See, I see something very different, right? So I agree with you that it's cheaper. So I don't know. Are you an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan by any chance?
Kinda, not as much as everybody
Well,
else is, but I know what it is.
so what's interesting is that they do the graphic novels. So a
Mhm.
graphic novel of them probably cost them 25 to 30,000 for 144 pages. Top end artists, top end writing. Sounds expensive, right? 144
Mhm.
pages. Not really, right? Compared to an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, way
Right.
more, right? Way more animated. Obviously one of those things probably has a higher rate of return than the other. And one of those things, but what they did is that they continue the story after book 3 in graphic novel format.
Mhm.
And so I see comics going the other way. Buffy the Vampire Slayer did it too, where
Mm.
it continued in comics, and it was great. And it's because comics are cheaper to do, and you can get the same story, and you can get continuations. There was a show on Netflix, or no, it wasn't a Netflix show, but it was on Netflix for a while called Jericho. They did the same thing where they continued the story in a graphic novel. And so as a fan, I get the story continued, I get canon, and I think it's great. So I think it can go either way. And
Yeah,
but
Star Wars too. Star Wars has continued a lot of these stories in comic books.
And I think it's absolutely fantastic, and so like that's my whole thing is that's why I think it's great because when you have the idea of being able to go and continue stories and then jump on to stories, and who says you can't continue a story in a comic book for 40 issues and then make a TV show to pick up right where it left off, and,
Mhm.
and then go back to comics. And I think it's so fascinating because I think we're in such a weird age on creation, but I don't really know where it's going to end economically because again, it is just so brutal right now on this whole thing where I think we're in the golden age of creation. Because on everything, I think there's better TV, better comics, better movies, better everything. But there's also a lot of bad stuff too, just because it's of it. I mean, for every amazing television, I'll ask you a question. You've seen The Office, right? Everybody's seen The Office, right?
Yeah.
How many good episodes of The Office are there in reality?
I'm the wrong person to ask this because I'm not one of those people who's like The Office sucks after a certain point in time. Yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask that because all the episodes are good to me.
I'll put it a different way. I'll ask the question a different way, right? To prove my point is that there are better episodes of The Office. They're all great, right? Every episode is great, right? The first season is a little rough, right? But it's understandable that the first 6 episodes were a little rough. But after that, the show just took off and it's great. But there are episodes that are better than others by
Right.
miles, by miles. So like, and there's certain cold openings that are better than others by
Mhm.
miles, like Kevin spilling the chili, one of the
Right.
funniest things ever. But my point is that when we look at creation, there's things that are better than other things, but we're still in the golden age collectively.
Mhm.
Because there's so much good stuff coming out now because there's just so much more being produced. That
Yeah.
naturally, if only 100 things are produced and 10% of them are good, you only get 10 things that are good. If you have 10,000 things produced and 10% is good, 1,000 things are good
Right.
versus having 100 because it just the percentage doesn't change. What it is that the number changes, and that's where we're at is that so much is being produced that the percentage hasn't changed. It's the number of stuff that's getting through that has, and that's what
Right.
makes this such an interesting area. And it's not just comics; it's collectively everything. But that's a whole debate and an economic thesis and supply and demand chain, which is my favorite topic. So I'm an economics guy, and I love numbers. It's just like give me a spreadsheet and like a crossword puzzle, and I'm a happy person.
That is not me. That is not me. Not me at all.
It's terrible. Give me a 1099K stock report. Oh my god, just I'm the type of kid that on January 1st reads the IRS tax code.
That's strange. That's interesting.
But it's not as strange as you think. I know how to do my taxes, and I know, and I will end up saving myself a lot of money
No,
every
no,
year.
that's definitely good. That's definitely 100%.
People think it's a weird thing. It's good to know tax law. Well, why is that strange?
It's just because you're super excited about it. Like it's not strange to know. You seem super excited about it, but that's your thing. You said you like numbers.
I like numbers, and it helps my business.
Hey, don't we all love that? Don't we all love that?
It saves me money. So I get excited because I'm like, oh shit, a new tax loophole's in there. 5 grand was just saved. I guess we're going to Disney World today. Mickey Mouse, here I come. Tigger,
No, that's hilarious.
Tigger. After when I was 5 years old, me and Tigger did not get along. I almost got crushed by Tigger at Disney World. It was not a fun experience.
That does not sound fun, especially because it's Tigger. Like out of all of them, like bouncing around, it sounds like you get crushed by him.
But Tigger was very apologetic.
He was. He better because he's ready to get sued. That's why.
That's because I was going to take away the honey pot, and then he's going to have to explain to Winnie the Pooh what was going on. But anyway, I digress here. I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. Now that we've learned a lot about me today, and now me and Tigger don't get along, but I may or may not steal Mrs. Mouse away from Mickey. But hey, if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could steal Mrs. Met, I don't see why I can't steal Minnie Mouse. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm sure A-Rod will be rooting for me all the way, but Derek Jeter will not be a fan. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm referencing, look up Big Poppy stealing Mrs. Met on YouTube, and you will learn a very valuable lesson about what happens in baseball.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the funniest moments in baseball in the last 10 years. One of the funniest moments. And oh my God, Derek Jeter he was not happy about that situation with Big Poppy trying to steal Mrs. Met. But anyway, I digress. I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, back your Kickstarter, follow you on social media, check out your website, all of that?
You can follow me at 615 Comics on Instagram, 615 Comics on Facebook, wherever you just look up 615 Comics, and the 615 is spelled out 615, and then comics. Just anywhere you search that, I will come up. You can look my website up, 615comics.com. If you go to my website, that'll literally take you to basically everything. You can buy my comics there. I'll take you to the Kickstarter, and also, like I said, I have a Kickstarter running right now for my comic book, The King's Domain, issues 1 and 2. So check out the Kickstarter and then back it, and then let me know what you think.
And then I've been saying it forever. I'm going to keep saying it, is you have to support projects that you want to see get made. You got to back people on Kickstarter. You got to, follow people on social media. Goes a long way. Sharing things out really does help. That's kind of the big ones right there. And then as far as me, because it is my show, so I do promote myself. I am Pop Anime Comics on X/Twitter. I am finally free from Twitter jail, and I am thrilled that the Bills head coach is now fired. Very happy about that. I bet on the Broncos. I want to make that crystal clear for everybody. I want to make that crystal clear. I believe the Texans head coach should not be fired. So if he gets fired, I will be protesting that very adamantly on Twitter, from the safety of my house, might I add, too. So I will mark myself safe from being fired by Buffalo. But anyway, so I had to have a good time with that on Twitter. So if you want to have a good time with me on Twitter, everybody, Sunday football, I'm going to be tweeting all day, and I'm excited. And I get creative with my tweets. I get very creative. And then you should see me during baseball season. Oh my God. Just don't even, guys. Don't even. I have a good time on Twitter with sports. So please follow me on Twitter at Pop Anime Comics /X, Instagram Pop Anime Comics, Facebook Pop Anime Comics, TikTok Pop Anime Comics, while it's still under control and it doesn't get taken over by something else. So TikTok, we don't know what's going to happen with it, but while we're still at it, Pop Anime Comics. YouTube, please subscribe. Means a lot, actually, if you subscribe on YouTube, because it does help the algorithms, and it definitely helps my video stuff. And I have 1,900 plus videos, almost 1,300 interviews, so there's something for everybody. You name it, I've done it on Twitter. I'm sorry, not Twitter, YouTube. On an interview, I've done it all. And you name it, I've done it, right? From crypto to porn stars and everything in between. I've interviewed them all. And we all laugh, but I have a good time, and you don't know who's coming on next. and then finally, I do run an eBay store. So look for Comics and Collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay. Pop Anime Comics Collectibles, and I sell a lot of cool stuff. So I sell books like this in my store. I sell books like this in my store. I sell cards like this in my store. I sell stuff like this in my store, where I used to sell stuff like this in my store. It sold out a little while ago. I sell things like this. I'm a big WNBA guy. So I sell stuff like this, limited 25 Angel Reese. And then every once in a while, you pull something in like this, which is a one-on-one Diana Taurasi. And that one was sold by me for $1,000. So I do carry big cards. And then stuff like this does also pop up in my eBay store from time to time, which are super rare John Cena relics. This one is my own personal one, not selling this, but I do have stuff that is like that in my store, which are relics, base relics, stuff like that. So, there's a lot of cool stuff that comes up. And I've been saying it forever that First off, go to my eBay store if you're looking for comics or cards. And if you go through my eBay store and you don't see what you're looking for, shoot me a message on eBay because I may have it. It just may not be listed at the current time because I got a lot of merch and I move my merch around. And if I have it, I'll list it for you. And if I don't have it, chances are I know somebody who does have it. And I will direct you to the right person because I know what it means to be a collector and to get what you're looking for. And I'm happy to direct people to products that I don't have in my store for whatever reason. Sometimes I sell out, sometimes I just don't carry it, and sometimes it's just not my cup of tea. So more than happy to direct people to it. And I've done it plenty of times. And in fact, I know a lot of people, right? And I've directed somebody who was looking for something they didn't even know existed. They bought a bunch of stuff from me and they didn't even know that this super rare comic existed. And I directed the person to the person who created, and they had an extra and they got what they wanted. And that person was beyond thankful to me. And I'm like, dude, I'm happy to help you out anytime. And he's like, yo, can I pay you? I said, you don't need to. Happy to do it. Just happy to direct people to where they need to be and what they need to do. And I was like, damn. So it goes a long way. And I'm always happy to do that. So that's everything I got going on. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, hey, everybody, go to the Kickstarter. Check me out, 615 Comics of Malcolm McFadden. And thank you for having me on, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Happy that you can make it. Super excited to you. And I believe everybody that is a